Hi, this is Vivian. Today I'm going to show you a quick demonstration on how to get a splash effect in photography. Have you ever looked at a photograph which is entirely in black and white, and then you have the subject which completely pops out in a very vibrant looking color? And have you ever looked at such a photograph and wondered, I really wish I could do something like this with my own work? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to achieve today. Using some very simple and very powerful mobile phone applications like Snapseed and Photoshop Express. These apps are absolutely free to download. You can get them on your Android or iOS phone, whichever one you use. So before we go ahead to the next part of the video, I'd really like you to go and download these applications, and then I'm going to walk you through how to get that wonderful splash effect on your own photographs. So let's get started. I'm going to open up the original image which I had clicked. So this is completely unedited. As you can see, the entire picture has a sort of a black and white feel to it, although there is a lot of color around. So you see these taxis in yellow. There are quite a few of them, and there also is this bus in red over here. Although originally, after looking at the picture, the yellow was so vibrant and bright. I just wanted to make sure that the other objects in the image got a little unsaturated and more towards black and white, with only this particular subject, which is the taxi, standing out in yellow. So let's get started by opening it in the first application, and I'm going to start with Photoshop Express. Yeah. So this is Photoshop Express, and it has a ton of presets over here that I would really encourage you to check out. There are a ton of cool things that you can do, really interesting effects in case you want to keep posting while you're on the go. You also have the entire set of manual control that you generally would see on Lightroom or Photoshop in your PC. But today I'm just going to focus our attention on splash. So if you go over here, you have the splash mode. Let's pull that up. And as you can see, there are a ton of presets on the bottom, starting with aqua, blue, green, etc. So let's head over and pick out yellow. Now the moment I click on yellow, as you can see, everything else in the picture has completely gone in a grayscale mode, and we do have only the colors which are in yellow standing out. As you would notice, there are parts of the subject which actually haven't been captured, and I'll tell you why this tends to happen. So the application is nothing but a software which has digital processing on the image, and it allows certain frequencies of color in the image to stand out, whereas the remaining frequencies it automatically dilutes down to a grayscale kind of a output. And of course over here the AI thinks that this is in yellow, and this didn't qualify the filter, so it's been filtered out, and you have parts of it which are still there. So typically this is one of the limitations of Photoshop Express. So in some cases you might have images where clicking on a certain preset color really makes the color splash while everything else in the background is black and white. But don't worry, what if you start moving across, you'll also notice that there are some other colors in the palette. So let me click on orange, and now the moment I click on orange, you'll notice that the entire part of the taxi is actually standing out in yellow, and everything else is in black and white. We do have some other minor issues. For example, you see the tail lights of the vehicles, and they are in red, and according to the software, it has picked it up as orange, and it has allowed it to be part of the final image. And same for the bus here. So while this is supposed to be a deep red, somehow the AI has assumed that's an orange, and it has allowed it to pass through. So I'm going to show you how to take care of that as well. But meanwhile, there is a slider in the app, and if you keep moving the slider around, you'll notice that there is some level of adjustments you can make to the impact of this particular preset image of preset filter of orange splash. So I'm going to keep this for now. I'm not going to make it too harsh. I'm probably going to move it a little towards this side, just to get the perfect color to pop without making it too dark, right? And while I'm at it, I do also notice that it's getting a little underexposed. I'm going to quickly head over to exposure, and I'm going to just increase it a tad. Yeah. So yeah, so this is going to be the image, and in Photoshop Express there is a feature where you can, if you just tap on top over here, it will show you the original image, and if you tap it again, it will show you the corrections that you have done within this session. So I think for now this is good to go. I'm also going to be using the same image in Snapseed to make the remaining corrections. So let me save a copy of this first before heading over to Snapseed. So while that is happening, I think I also should call out that, unlike Snapseed, where it gives you a lot of manual control over the changes you want to make, Photoshop Express it has a lot of automatic shortcuts, and while it can be really handy and beneficial at times, because you really don't need to do a lot in terms of understanding, the way the software works or the way the app works. You can just keep playing around with what I've just shown you, but it also has limitations, because in cases like these where you have a lot of false positives like the bus over here, or the other vehicles which are also standing out, Snapseed gives you a lot more control, and let's head over to Snapseed to see how to complete the remaining image. So I'm just gonna exit this particular application. I'm going to open this out. So this is the image that Photoshop Express has saved for us, and I'm going to quickly head over to Snapseed to do the remaining editing. Yeah, right. So this is the Snapseed interface. I'm going to quickly head over to tools and select brush. Before I do that, there are a ton of other functionality that Snapseed has. It'll be good to maybe spend some time, play around with it to understand what each of the tools over here is for. But I really love the brush tool, and I use it extensively in my post-production. So if you select the brush tool, you'll notice there are 4 types of brushes available. So the first one is dodge and burn, the second is exposure, the third is temperature, and the fourth is saturation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick out the saturation brush. So as part of the tool, so what this app allows you to do is to pick out pieces of the picture and manually either increase or decrease the saturation, and we do that by clicking on this control function over here. So as you can see, it says saturation at 10, which means that it's going to increase your saturation by +10. But however, in this case, I really want to drop the saturation on the other objects which are really distracting from the subject at the moment. So I'm going to drop my saturation down to -10. And when I do that, I'm just also going to zoom in a bit. So now I can just move my finger around, and it operates as a brush, and I'm just painting over the entire image over here. So whatever I'm painting over, as you can see, it's turning to black and white. Yeah, and it's quite powerful as well. So it's a -10 saturation, and as you can see, as I keep moving my finger across parts of the image, yeah, it's easing out to a very simple black and white. However, what I typically would recommend to do is to click on the eye function over here. So when you click on the eye, you can actually see the parts where you have already applied this effect, and the parts where you haven't. So let's assume that you've done it here, and you really want a clean cut. You don't want the saturation to spill over onto the actual subject. So you're going to be a little careful and paint over the remaining parts of the image. However, if you do get a few smudges on the subject, there's nothing to really worry. I'm going to show you how to erase that as well. Yeah. So as you can see, we've gotten rid of almost the entire color over here. This is a bit tricky. We have a bit of a tail lamp of the vehicle ahead of the subject. Yeah. And on this side, we have this big red bus over here that we need to take care of. So we're going to keep moving our brush over this until the entire image gets completely desaturated. Yeah. So it's pretty simple to do. Yeah, and the moment we just zoom out a little, so this was just to show you the demonstration on how to do it. If I just remove the eye tool, there you go. So you see the entire image is in black and white, and you have the subject which is standing out in color. Now you also do notice, if you are really, if you have an eye for detail, you'll notice that parts of the saturation have, seeped onto the subject. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the arrow to eraser, saturation eraser, and again I'm going to put the eye tool on. And what I'm going to do is, as you keep moving this, you will see the brush removing parts of saturation, rather desaturation, which is on the subject. So just to make sure that you have a very clean cut, there is no accidental, overlap or smudges that end up on your subject. So this is a very interesting way to do it. You might also wonder, whether we could have just done this in Snapseed without doing it in Photoshop. You absolutely could. I think that's also one way to do it. You don't need Photoshop Express if you want to manually do this. The only reason why I did select Photoshop Express in the first place is because the original image that I will probably pull up again has a very dull yellow, and the moment I apply the orange filter from Photoshop Express, I get a very bright yellow that is standing out in this frame, and it almost pops and catches your attention immediately, almost immediately. So that is the reason why I've used Photoshop Express first and then done the remaining editing on Snapseed. However, if you feel you don't need to use Photoshop Express, that's your call. And if you really feel there are other changes that you like to do, so we have the remaining brushes, and let's maybe talk about that as well. So parts of it, if you look on top, are slightly too bright, and they tend to steal a bit of your, or maybe distract the viewer from the subject. So I'm going to just reduce the exposure by a tad bit, so it brings out a nice dark overhead, so that you're not really distracted by too much of light. The only thing which is bright and standing out is the subject, in this case, which is the taxi. Yeah. So these are again minor things that you feel could really accentuate your photograph and give it a really nice look and feel. And as I use the eye tool again, you will be able to see the parts of which the exposure has been reduced a little. So when we are done, we're just going to click on the tick mark over there, and just before we exit, I would also recommend a bit of a cropping. As you can see, there is some distraction towards the left of the frame. I'm just going to take care of that, and yeah, there we go. So here you have it. So this is the splash feature explained. If there are any comments or questions or anything that you feel I could help with, please do mention in the chat box, and I'd love to help out with that. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something from this. And maybe if time permits, I'd like to create more videos like this where I talk about some of the other wonderful features and functionality of Snapseed and Photoshop Express. So do let me know what you think, guys, and thank you all for watching.